I'm writing this at 3 a.m. because sleep isn't coming anymore. Something followed me home from the pool 3 weeks ago, and I don't think it's planning on leaving. My name is John Harrison, and I'm writing this because I don't know how much time I have left. 3 weeks ago, I was a normal 17-year-old living in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Just a regular kid with a summer job at the gas station, a half-decent GPA, and absolutely no reason to be terrified every time I hear water running. But that was before the community pool on Riverside Drive became the last place I ever want to see again. It was late August, barely 2 weeks into the school year prep, and my mom had this idea that I needed to stay active before junior year got too crazy. She signed me up for a pool membership without asking, dropped $40 at the front desk, and told me I'd thank her later when I had abs for homecoming. I didn't have the heart to tell her I was mostly just tired all the time now, that the exhaustion had settled into my bones like something I couldn't shake no matter how much sleep I got. But I went anyway, because that's what you do when you're 17 and your parents still control the car keys and the Wi-Fi password. The pool was this ugly concrete pit behind the recreation center, built sometime during the Ford administration, and it smelled like decades of sweaty swim diapers had soaked into the walls despite the chlorine. Mr. Booth ran the place most nights, a 60-something maintenance guy who barely looked up from his phone when I scanned my membership card, always watching those vintage game shows with the volume cranked so loud I could hear Pat Sajak guessing consonants from the parking lot. I started going after 9 because it was the only time the lane swimmers cleared out, when the overhead lights would dim to that orange emergency glow, and the whole building would go quiet except for the hum of the filtration system and the wet echo of my own breathing. That quiet became my thing, that dark little pocket of time when nobody expected anything from me, when I could just exist in the water and feel like maybe things weren't as overwhelming as they seemed. I didn't know yet that the pool was keeping something for itself. I went 3 times that first week, doing lazy laps back and forth along the shallow end, while my mind wandered to school, to work, to girls who never looked at me twice. It was during my 4th visit, a Thursday night around 10:15, that I made the mistake of drifting too far into the deep end. I was on my back, floating with my ears underwater, when I noticed the silence. Not just the absence of noise, but this thick, heavy silence that felt like cotton stuffed into my skull. I righted myself and realized I'd floated way off course, that I was now directly over the drain at the bottom of the 12-foot section. The drain was a wide metal grate set into the concrete, maybe 3 feet across, and I'd swam over it 100 times without ever really looking at it. But that night I looked, and I saw the water moving wrong. The surface of the pool was calm, except for the ripples spreading out from my body. But down at the drain, the water was flowing inward, pulling toward those metal slots with this slow, hungry suction that shouldn't have been there. The pump was off. I could see the shutdown lights on the control panel from where I floated. And there was no circulation running, no jets, nothing to explain why the water around me was being dragged down toward that grate, like something was trying to drain the entire pool. I watched a stream of tiny bubbles slide sideways through the water, curving in elegant spirals toward the drain. And I swear I saw something else down there too. This faint, dark shape pressed against the underside of the grate, something that might have been a hand or might have been just a shadow. But either way, it was moving. It was pressing upward against the metal, testing the bars, and the moment I noticed it, it stopped. Just froze, like it knew I was looking. I didn't stick around to find out what it was testing for. I swam back to the shallow end with my heart slamming against my ribs, told myself I'd imagined the whole thing, and finished my laps without going anywhere near the deep end again. But I couldn't stop thinking about it on the drive home. I couldn't stop thinking about it for the next 3 weeks. Not until I went back. Not until I made it worse. I told myself I wouldn't go back. I actually believed it too, right up until Tuesday night when I found myself sitting in the parking lot at 9:47 p.m., staring at the brick building with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I hadn't slept properly in 4 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dark shape pressed against the grate, felt the pull of that impossible suction, heard something that might have been breathing, or might have been just the water rushing past my ears. My mom asked if I was coming down with something. My boss at the gas station sent me home early because I couldn't focus long enough to run a register. I needed to prove it hadn't been real, that my brain had just glitched from swimming too hard or not eating enough or whatever excuse made the most sense. I needed to get back in that water and swim over that drain and see nothing but empty concrete and stagnant water. And then I could move on with my life like a normal person. The pool was emptier than usual that night. Mr. Booth was at his desk, but he looked different somehow. Paler, with these dark circles under his eyes that made him look like he hadn't slept in weeks. He glanced up when I walked in, but didn't say anything. Just went back to watching his game show with that 1,000-yard stare that made my skin prickle. I changed in the locker room as fast as I could, ignoring the way the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, ignoring the drip of water from the showers that sounded too much like footsteps, ignoring the feeling that I wasn't alone in there, even though I clearly was. The pool looked different at night now, the water seeming thicker somehow under the dim lights, and I could smell something else underneath the chlorine, something organic and faintly sweet, like fruit left too long in a plastic bag. I got in slowly, letting the water come up around my shoulders, and I made myself a promise. I would swim along the walls, stay in the shallow end where it was safe, and absolutely not go anywhere near the deep end, no matter what I thought I saw or felt. I was halfway through my second lap when I felt it. This pressure against my lower back, like someone had pressed their palm flat against my spine from underneath the water. I flinched and spun around, but there was nothing there, just the empty pool stretching out before me and the echo of my own panicked breathing off the tile walls. I made myself keep swimming, forced my arms and legs to keep moving, but that pressure didn't go away. It shifted as I moved, staying just behind me, just out of sight, like something was pacing me through the water. When I finally stopped at the wall and looked down at my reflection, I saw my arms, every single hair standing straight up from my skin, rigid with fear even though the water was warm. And beneath my reflection, at the bottom of the pool where the light didn't quite reach, I could swear I saw a shadow that didn't match my shape. It was wider than me, longer than me, and it was rising. By the following week, I had developed this ritual of avoidance. I would swim for exactly 45 minutes, counting my strokes like my life depended on it, doing backstroke laps along the shallow end with my eyes fixed on the ceiling tiles and never once looking down at the water. I stopped getting fully underwater during those sessions, kept my head tilted back at that angle where I could see the walls but not what was underneath them, and I carried a small flashlight in my swim trunks, even though I never turned it on, because using it would mean admitting why I needed it in the first place. The pool felt smaller at night now, the walls pressing in like they were slowly shifting closer, and I swear the water level looked different every time I came. Sometimes lower, sometimes higher, never quite the same twice, even though Mr. Booth told me the rec center had an automatic filler that kept everything consistent. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't stop noticing how the tile line at the water's edge seemed to change position, how the shadow cast by the diving board would fall in different places depending on the night, how the water sometimes felt thicker around my ankles in ways that had nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with something I didn't want to name. I prayed about it every night before I fell asleep, asking God to help me get through another summer, another season, another year until I could graduate and never think about this place again. Dear Lord, I would whisper into my pillow at 2 a.m., let me just get through this. Let me just be normal again. But I don't think he was listening, because normal had already left the building the moment I first noticed that drain moving. That Thursday, I broke my own rule. I don't know what happened. Maybe I miscounted my laps. Maybe something in the water distracted me, but I ended up in the middle of the deep end without meaning to be there at all. I was on my back again, floating, letting the water carry me in lazy circles while I stared up at the flickering emergency light above and tried not to think about what was below. That's when I felt it. A single finger pressing into the arch of my left foot. Just one, cold and soft and impossibly gentle, tracing a line across my skin like someone was trying to get my attention in the most careful way possible. I jerked my leg back so hard, I went completely underwater. And when I surfaced, gasping and spinning in circles, I saw nothing but the empty pool and the distant glow of Mr. Booth's game show, and the dark water rippling outward from where I had been floating like something had disturbed the surface on purpose. I made it to the wall in 3 frantic strokes and hauled myself out so fast I tore the skin of my palms on the concrete, and I sat there dripping and shaking while my heart tried to escape through my throat. Lord have mercy, I kept whispering. God, please, please God, over and over like a prayer could save me from whatever had just touched me. When I finally had the courage to look at my foot, I saw them. 5 small bruises blooming across my arch in a perfect arc, each one the size of a fingertip, purple and black, like something had pressed down hard and held on. I stopped going to the pool after that night. I told my parents the chlorine was irritating my sinuses, which was technically true but not the whole truth and nowhere close to the real truth, which was that I couldn't stop seeing those bruises on my foot every time I looked down, couldn't stop feeling that single cold finger tracing lines across my skin whenever I closed my eyes. I called in sick to work for 3 days straight, stayed in my room with the lights on and the TV blasting whatever noise I could find, and tried to convince myself that if I just waited long enough, the fear would fade and I could go back to being a normal teenager who didn't spend his nights terrified of swimming pools. But here's the thing about being 17 and stupid. You think you're brave and you're not, but you're also not as scared as you should be, and that gap between what you know and what you do gets smaller every year until you do something you can't take back. So, on the last Saturday of August, Labor Day weekend, when my parents went to visit my aunt in Des Moines and left me home alone with strict instructions to eat real food and not throw any parties, I found myself driving back to the rec center at 10 p.m. with the windows rolled up and my hands gripped so tight on the wheel my knuckles went white. I prayed the whole way there. God, I'm sorry. I know this is stupid. I know I should just forget about it. But I need to see it one more time. I need to know what was down there. I need to know if I imagined the whole thing or if something actually reached up and touched me, and I can't tell the difference anymore between what's real and what's my brain breaking under pressure. The pool was closed for the night, but the side door was unlocked, like always, because Mr. Booth never remembered to check it. And I walked through the dark locker room with my phone flashlight, cutting a weak path through the blackness until I reached the pool deck. The water was perfectly still, no ripples, no movement, just that thick, dark surface reflecting the emergency lights like a mirror made of oil. And I stood at the edge for a long time, trying to work up the courage to get in. I didn't get in. I couldn't make myself do it, so instead I walked along the deck until I was standing directly over the deep end, and I turned off my flashlight and looked down. At first there was nothing, just the bottom of the pool and the drain and the darkness that pooled around them like something tangible, something you could touch if you reached in far enough. Then I saw the bubbles. They were rising from the drain in a slow, steady stream. Not the random bubbles you get from filtration or temperature changes, but a deliberate pattern of bubbles that rose and stopped and rose again, like someone was breathing underwater, like something down there was taking its time. And then the grate began to rattle. It wasn't loud, just this soft vibration against the concrete. A trembling that traveled up through the pool deck and into my feet and legs until my whole body was shaking with it. And I watched those metal bars start to bend outward, their slots widening like fingers spreading apart. And behind them, there was nothing. Just an infinite black void that swallowed the flashlight beam the second I pointed it down there. A darkness so complete it looked like the drain had no bottom at all, like it opened up into somewhere else entirely. I stumbled backwards so fast I fell, scraping my palms raw on the concrete, and I ran for the exit without looking back, because if I had looked back, I know I would have seen something rising, something that had been waiting for exactly this moment, for me to come back, for me to give it another chance. And I didn't stop running until I reached my car and locked the doors and sat there in the dark with my headlights off, crying and shaking and praying louder than I'd ever prayed in my life. God, please let that be the end of it. Let that be the last time I ever have to go back there. I woke up on the concrete beside the pool. I don't know how long I was unconscious. My phone was dead. My limbs were stiff. And the sun was streaming through the windows in a way that told me hours had passed, not minutes. I was soaking wet, my swim trunks heavy with chlorinated water, and there was concrete dust in my mouth like I'd been biting down on something hard. I scrambled backward across the pool deck until my spine hit the wall, gasping for air that tasted like pool chemicals and something else, something metallic and organic that made my stomach turn. And I looked around desperately for some sign of what had happened. The drain was still there, the grate back in place like nothing had moved. But the water level had dropped at least 6 inches overnight, and there was this ring of grime around the pool's edge that hadn't been there before. A dark tide mark that spoke to something vast and dark that had risen up and then receded. "Dear God," I whispered, "what happened to me?" There was no answer, of course, just the hum of the filtration system kicking back on and the distant sound of traffic outside. The ordinary world continuing like nothing had changed, even though everything had changed forever. I got out of there fast, didn't stop to shower or grab my towel or anything else, and I drove home with every window rolled down, even though it was barely 50 degrees outside, because I couldn't stop shaking, and I couldn't stop feeling those hands on me, those cold, desperate hands that had pulled me under and held me down while something whispered my name in a voice that didn't sound human. The next morning, I saw the news on my phone before I even got out of bed. They found Mr. Booth in the pool that Saturday night, drowned in the deep end, his body discovered by the morning maintenance crew when they arrived at 6 a.m. to find him floating face down with his eyes wide open and his expression frozen in absolute terror. The police report said there was no sign of struggle, no injuries, nothing to explain how a 63-year-old man who knew those pools better than anyone had somehow drowned in 3 feet of water in a section barely 5 feet deep. But when I looked at the photo they used in the article, I saw something the police report didn't mention. There were bruises on his arms, 5 on each bicep, perfectly round and purple-black, like someone had grabbed him from underneath and held on tight. Lord, forgive me, I thought when I saw those bruises, because I knew exactly what had done that to him. It had been waiting for me to come back, and when I did, it got Mr. Booth instead. I went back to the rec center one more time that afternoon, told the cops I'd been a member and wanted to pay my respects, and they let me stand at the edge of the pool for just a moment while they finished their paperwork inside. The water was calm again, the drain was silent, but I could see those scratches in the concrete lip at the waterline, 5 parallel gouges running downward, like someone or something had clawed its way out of the water and left those marks behind as proof of what lived below. I never went swimming again. I moved out of Cedar Falls the following spring, told my parents I wanted a fresh start somewhere warmer, and I never looked back at that ugly concrete pool or the brick building that housed it or the man who died because I couldn't stay away. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I feel that pressure again. That slow, deliberate pull against my skin, like something testing the boundary between here and there, between the world I live in and the world beneath the grate. I pray for Mr. Booth every night before I fall asleep. Ask God to forgive him for whatever sin the news implied he might have committed. Ask God to forgive me for going back that night and disturbing whatever he'd been keeping contained all those years. And I think about how I still have nightmares about the bottom drain, the way it felt to be pulled down into that black water, held under while something pressed its hands against my chest and whispered my name in a voice like bubbles rising through mud. "John," it said. "John, come down here with us. Stay with us. We have been so alone, John. We have been waiting so long. And every time I wake up gasping in the dark, I thank God that I made it out alive, even though I know that something came up with me when I fled that pool 3 years ago. Something I can't see, can't touch, can't pray away, but something I can feel every single time I hear water running. In the shower, from a garden hose, from a faucet in a public bathroom. Every time I feel those hands reaching up again, testing the boundary, waiting for the day I slip and fall and give them another chance to pull me back down where I belong.